Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the latest from Exodus, Persona Non Grata on November 19th on Nuclear Blast. This album has 12 tracks, 60 minutes in length, and this is the band's 11th full-length studio album, 7 years since their last record for this American thrash metal band. Now for this record, I felt like they created an album that's very solid. It's very balanced, very cohesive from top to bottom. It's not a roller coaster ride, it's just an album that comes at you very direct in its approach. The only nuance to that is two songs. Cosa del Pantano, an interlude instrumental acoustic guitar track that has a little bit of a western vibe to it, that then merges itself into Lunatic-Liar-Lord, and then that song finishes off with some tribal drums. These two attributes are unique to these two songs, and that sets it apart from everything that came before and everything that comes after. Perhaps the only portion of the record where you get a little bit of a reprieve that you can come up for air just ever so slightly before the onslaught continues. I also like the fact that they broke these songs apart because they could totally be just one track, and they feel like one track when you're listening to the album from beginning to end. But from a streaming services perspective, having them as two separate tracks works better. Otherwise, you would have a song going almost into the 10-minute mark. Once you get into the soundscape, this is Exodus, so there's nothing to expect that it wouldn't be expected from an Exodus album. They pick up exactly where they left off with the last record. So this is an album that has very good definition of sound coming from the drums and the bass. The drums sound phenomenal on this record. They really define the parameters of everything else that is happening. They have a sense of warmth to their sound. They have a sense of carrying you forward and carrying the songs forward as well. Really embracing the tracks, really creating a way of cuddling the songs and pushing them from track to track and moving them forward. The bass comes in and really pairs up really well. I really like the bass tone as well on this record. The bass, when it comes across in some of the songs where you feel it like it's a little bit more predominant, it's absolutely delicious. But the two elements working well together and really allowing this album to have a strong foundation for the guitars to then come on top and be a little bit more direct, be a little bit more driven, be a little bit more chunky, and just cut through butter like a hot knife. That's exactly how this album feels as far as the overall soundscape is concerned, and how these three elements are working together. On top of that, you have Steve Souza on vocals, vintage performance. What you've come to expect from him is exactly what you're going to get on this album. He is that steam whistle that just blows off his cap every so often from track to track, and he is able to carry the emotion of the lyrics and the intensity, the aggression of the songs, and make it be verbal and come out of his voice, of his tone, of his delivery, and really be that catalyst that pushes the record, that pushes these songs, and that increases the level of intensity. Because from a lyrical perspective, this album is really a child of its time. It has a lot of social awareness, a lot of social topics that really spent perhaps the last couple of years. So it's a record that feels close to home, that feels close to them in terms of what it carries as far as the message goes, and Steve Souza is able to translate that message and really push the songs forward and give them life at every single turn. Overall, this is a great Exodus album. Like I said earlier, it doesn't really feel like it's been 7 years in between records, because this album doesn't feel rusty at all. It feels like they're firing on all cylinders. It felt to me like they were very hungry when they went into the studio to create this album. The same energy that we saw in '85 with their debut record, we see that same style of energy, that same style of hunger, like we still have something to prove coming across with this album. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with R.E.M.F, second track on the album. Great tempo, riff-driven track, almost like a motor. The guitar riff on this track really feels like a motor revving up. That's kind of the impression that I got out of this track. The vocals keep the song a little bit more centered. The solo section intensifies the power. It bursts the power that this song has all the way throughout. It really expands the footprint of the song as well. And then the track goes back, after the solo section, goes back to the original formula, and it closes off with a burst of aggression. It also finishes off with a little bit of how you would play this song in a live setting. So I really like how organic, how raw this song feels from beginning all the way to the end. It almost like a jam session style track. Next we have Slipping Into Madness, one of the hookiest tracks on this album. It moves really well, the guitars are weaving in and out, creating heaviness, creating melody, and then weaving those two elements together. The chorus has this call and answer style, and I think that's what makes the song perhaps a little bit more hooky, a little bit more catchy, and it doesn't lose any heaviness at all once it gets to the chorus. It slows down a little bit, but it never loses the heaviness that it carries. So it has some ebbs and flows between verses and chorus. It has some ups and downs. great bass sound throughout this track, but when it pops into the forefront, you could really feel it, and then it stays glued in your brain. So this is a song that has great bass, great melody, great driven sound, and like I said, some ups and downs, some ebbs and flows between verses and chorus, making it a little bit more dynamic, making it a little bit more engaging, and then with that hooky chorus, perfect track all around. Last but not least, Clickbait. We're living in the age of clickbait. I love the title of the track, I love the content of the lyrics of the track, and I love the volume that this track has. I mean, this is a substantial track in terms of the sound that it carries. It just feels heavy, it feels powerful, it feels like it never really loses that sort of definition of aggression, power, and volume and thickness from beginning all the way to the end. The vocals come in and they put a lid on it, or at least they feel like they're trying to contain all the aggression, all the emotion that's coming from the sound of the track itself. The solo allows that steam to come off. The lid is off, and once the solo comes in, that solo section really takes off all that steam out of that pressure cooker that is this track from beginning all the way to the end. One of the most robust tracks on this album. This is it, Exodus, Persona Non Grata, out November 19th on Nuclear Blast. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.